Well, the president pitched his infrastructure plan in Ohio on Thursday, but said not to expect any big changes until after the midterms, blaming Democrats.
We have a very important election coming up, and they don't like the wins we've been getting. They don't like that the economy, the Democrats, they don't like that the economy is so strong. They don't like that they don't have one vote on the tax cuts, not one vote. And they're all now saying, those tax cuts are tough. What they're saying to each other is not pretty if you're a Democrat, and we should do well. History says that when you win the presidency, that party doesn't do so well in the midterms because people get complacent. They get complacent. We cannot be complacent.
All right, Erin Delmore is a senior political correspondent for Bustle. Thanks a lot for joining us, and good to see you.
Glad to be here.
All right, so are Republicans worried about the upcoming elections, and can the president rally his base to turn out to vote? It looks like he was started a campaign right there for the midterm elections.
The president loves the campaign trail. You and I know this well. It's where he's most comfortable. It's when he gets the spotlight, and he really gets to feel the crowd. Remember, it's that authenticity and his ability to speak to voters that propelled him all the way to the White House. So when we see him out there today, he's making those calls out. You can hear what he's pitching and what we are so likely to see leading up to November. Props to tax reforms. The economy is strong. Let's keep it that way. You heard a call in there to get out and vote. When he says historically the incumbent party doesn't do well, it's accurate, and it's something that Republicans are afraid of. So he's getting his base out there. He's saying we'll build up the military, we're fighting ISIS. You really saw him today touting his accomplishments.
All right, and after the event, or at that event, I should say, the president also discussed the firing of VA Secretary David Shulkin, which we've been talking about for the past couple of days. Shulkin wrote an op-ed in the New York Times Thursday arguing against privatizing health care for veterans. Do we know if this was the reason that Shulkin was fired, or were there other issues at play?
Regardless of whether this was the issue or the main issue, there are other issues at play here. Now, remember, President Trump wants to see his cabinet secretaries sticking by his side. He doesn't want to see them wavering away from his own policies. And what he really doesn't like are leaks in the media. So if we look specifically at Shulkin, we see one big controversy. That's over some trips that he's taken, particularly with his wife on the taxpayer dime. He's one of 5 cabinet secretaries to be embroiled in these travel-related expense scandals. They just don't look good. Whether or not you agree with the president's policies, it makes everyday Americans really angry to see cabinet secretaries doing this. The second, Trump says, is that Shulkin lost the faith of the VA. And that's important. You can remember he said something similar about Comey right before he was ousted. The president really wants to know that his people have the full support of his organization. And then Shulkin was going and talking to the New York Times. That's not something that the administration wants to see either. Exactly. So you can see this building up. The second thing I'll mention is that while we've been talking about Shulkin for so long, he was only fired very recently, and that's also a Trumpian principle, to have a cabinet secretary out there vulnerable, being rumored about, waving in the wind. It's something that Trump has done. Certainly we saw it with Tillerson. Certainly we've spoken about his beleaguered AG, Jeff Sessions. This is a little bit of a pattern in the Trump White House as well.
So the rumor's out there, they talk about it, and then comes the fire.
You don't want to be a part of this rumor mill.
Not at all. All right, one of the criticisms of Shulkin's potential replacement, of course, the president's doctor there, Ronnie Jackson, the fact that he lacks administrative sort of leadership in that role, but, he's also a fan of the president as well. Many people have been saying that, especially when he talked about how all he eats is McDonald's and Diet Cokes, and he could live for a very long time. What do you see here, and will that criticism stick, or does it even matter?
Well, it's an unorthodox choice, right? The president choosing his White House, physician to come take on this role. Certainly, they have faith in each other. They see each other daily. He's somebody who's in the White House, in the residence with the president. They have a close relationship. And in the Trump White House, that is currency. Having this kind of close connection, this one-on-one and this personal rapport with POTUS. It's a big deal. But that said, you're right. He's never led anything close to this size. We're not just talking about any government department. We're talking about the second largest arm of the federal government. We're talking about serving millions of veterans. Now, granted, he is a doctor. He's a military physician, so he's grown up certainly in medicine, in pressure. He knows what it's like to serve this community, and these are all things that the White House is going to highlight. But when it comes to navigating the bureaucracy and being at the helm of an enormous organization, that's all going to be brand new.
Yeah, we'll have to see if this was a good chess move indeed made by the president. Meanwhile, Attorney General Jeff Sessions said in a letter released Thursday that he is not naming a second special counsel to investigate allegations, of course, of surveillance abuse within the Justice Department, despite calls from Republican lawmakers there. What do you make of this development here?
There are so many things to consider. For one, Jeff Sessions has found himself in the middle of this ongoing drama, and we, as people covering this, have seen the FBI being tossed around as a political football. So it's really important to say outright that Republicans were the one calling for an aggressive approach here, calling for something as strong and as unique and exclusive as a special prosecutor. You have Democrats on the other side saying that this is being launched as a way to distract from the Mueller investigation. So these are the two camps in the way that they broke down. Sessions is unique because, remember, he's recused himself from the Russia investigation. And what he's essentially saying now is, rather than appoint a special prosecutor off the bat, I'm going to appoint someone else. It will be that person's job to look in and see if there's anything to it. When we talk about it, we're talking about parts of the Hillary Clinton email investigation. We're talking about the FISA wiretap authorization that the FBI gave to surveil Carter Page, the Trump campaign associate. And we're talking about some of these major issues that have come up and boiled over. Sessions maintains that if anything is found, he will appoint a special prosecutor and they'll move forward. But consider what we've seen over the last few months and weeks.
Oh, yeah.
We see the memos come out. We see them get pushed back against. We see some of the documents come out. This is a slow drip process. And when I look at it, I see Jeff Sessions keeping his head above water. It's a respectable move. It is a step higher than bringing in the Inspector General, who critics say just didn't have the teeth for this type of a charge. But this is not what President Trump wants. So it's an interesting spot for Jeff Sessions.
All right, Erin Delmore, always good to see you. Thanks for joining us.
You too. Thank you.
All right.